For everyone that just joined, I am Timur Uzmanov from Cambridge University Press and Assessment, and I will be co-hosting the webinar with our speaker, Victoria Renfro, who is the head of professional development here at Cambridge. Whilst we wait another minute or so for more attendees to join, let me just explain how we're going to run the webinar. We are recording the webinar today to share it with you afterwards. So don't worry if your internet drops out during the session, and just rejoin as soon as you can and catch up on anything that you might have missed in the recording. So if you have trouble with your speakers, we suggest using headphones or checking that your speaker isn't muted. Your microphone will remain muted throughout the webinar. If you have any technical issues or questions about the session today, please can you put those in the chat, and my colleague Laura will be there to help. Okay, and please, can you put any questions that you have in the Q&A session, and we will cover them at the end of the webinar. So 7 days after the webinar, we will send you an email with a link to the webinar recording and a link where you can find the slides. Okay, if we don't have time to answer your questions during the session today, we'll be providing responses that you asked in our Brighter Thinking blog, or we'll share an email that you can kind of contact at the end of the session. Unfortunately, we can't provide any certificates for the session today. However, you will get an email as proof of your attendance. Okay, and without further ado, I will post a link to a quick feedback form again. I will hand over to Victoria Renfro. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Tim, and welcome to all of you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. It was absolutely wonderful to hear Timur read out the list of countries of people attending today. This really is a global webinar. I'm very excited to have you here. So this is the last of our series of 3 webinars this week on the Cambridge Learning for Schools professional development. You may have attended the one on Monday on preparing to teach, on Tuesday, the Teach Support Service, or this might be your first. There will be recordings and blog posts on the first 2. The Teach Skills Roadmap today, if you've attended one of the past ones, there might be a slight overlap of no more than 2 slides with an earlier webinar that you've attended. Otherwise, everything else will be unique to today. I will be sharing some video content and I will ask you if you experience any problems with that, you can just pop a message in the chat and I'll ask Timur to unmute and let me know if you can't hear the sound. Right, sorry, which time in? There we go. Right, so as Timur said, I am the Head of Professional Development for Cambridge Learning for Schools. I was a Cambridge teacher for 14 years in the UK, France and the USA. I was a Cambridge examiner and teacher trainer, and I've worked for Cambridge University Press and Assessment since 2018. Right, for today, there's a couple of different ways that we are going to interact. I'm really looking forward to interacting with you. I know that you've done an awful lot of online teaching over the past 2 years, and it's you're no stranger to this way of working. Interaction can often be linked to engagement. I'd love for you to be fully engaged and to think about the content that I'm sharing with you today. Some of the things that I'll ask you to do will just involve you having a think, but it might be really useful for you to have a notepad and pencil alongside of you, because at one point I will encourage you to make some notes. Of course, you might have a higher tech version of a piece of paper and a pen to take notes, and that's fine. Or you might just want to do it in your head. And we also have the chat function. I'm pointing this out to you, but I can already see that everybody is very familiar as to where that is and how to use it. But just a reminder that some of the interaction today will be via the chat. Right, so this is the slight overlap. If you did attend a session earlier this week, you may have seen the next 2 slides, but I promise that's the only repeated content. In 2020, we had the opportunity to redevelop our professional development to align with our new primary lower secondary publishing. Okay, so we explored what worked and we designed 3 types of professional development to give ongoing support and upskilling, moving away from the model where we maybe just drop in for an hour in a webinar to give support, to a model of long-standing support where we can work alongside of you throughout an academic year or longer to support your teaching. Our new services are designed to support teachers using the new Cambridge resources effectively, and we provide sustained support, if you look at that last section there, focused on equipping teachers with lasting skills. Right, if you've attended sessions earlier this week, you could use this as a revision activity, but if you haven't attended one of them, you can use it in the way that it was originally intended. So what do you imagine, reading the names, what do you imagine each of these services to involve? Think about the name Preparing to Teach. Again, if you were with us on Monday, maybe you can use that as a little revision activity. Can you remember the Preparing to Teach course, Teaching Skills Roadmap, and the Cambridge Teacher Support Service? Focus on the middle one today, but if you've attended one of the other two sessions, this will just be a reminder for you. So the Preparing to Teach course, oh, and this is just a thinking activity. You don't have to know anything down at this point. Preparing to Teach course, a set of train the trainer programs designed to upskill heads of departments, senior leaders. It's a cascade model, and it's to enable teams to work independently. Teaching Skills Roadmap, that's what we're here for today. A set of detailed, easy to access teaching standards, complete with how-to videos for 5 skills, containing 3 levels for each one. And the Teacher Support Service. I know some of you might have attended on Tuesday, an online teacher community hosted by subject matter experts, where teachers can ask teaching questions, join discussions, receive targeted training for your needs, on an ongoing basis.
Victoria, sorry to interrupt you. Any chance you could move the microphone slightly further away, because there's a bit of noise. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for telling me, Timo. How does that sound now?
Much better. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for letting me know. So the Teaching Skills Roadmap. Why are we doing this? Why professional development? Well, we work an awful lot with RPD. We centre an awful lot of it around this quote from Professor Dylan William. Every teacher needs to improve, not because they are not good enough, but because they can be even better. We strongly believe that here at Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Teaching is a journey of learning. We start as new teachers, and that learning curve is very high, but throughout our career, there is always more to learn. We can always be even better. And the Teaching Skills Roadmap is one of our products to support that ongoing learning. While you can use this if you are a new teacher, you could use this if you're a very established teacher. Maybe you've been teaching for a good many years, but it's time for you to move on to a higher level of practice. Right, I would like in a moment to launch a poll, but just before it's launched, I'd like you to have a think about the teachers in your school, and I would like you to think about which of these aspects the teachers in your school might most appreciate support with in their teaching practice. I'm just going to leave those there for a minute. I'll just read through them. So we've got lesson planning, active learning, classroom management, giving clear instructions, creating a supportive environment, and assessment for learning. Timo, would you launch the poll, please? Fantastic. I can see people voting already. Well, some people very quick off the mark. It's not the morning where you are, is it? I'd be a lot slower. I'm only halfway through a cup of coffee. Oh, fantastic. Well, I think we're setting into a pattern. No spoilers yet, but I think we're setting into a pattern. Okay, I'm going to close it in just a few minutes. I can see a few people are still coming in here. Okay, last opportunity. I can see a couple more people voting, but it's last opportunity now. Okay, Timo, could we close and share the results, please? Great. Okay, so you can see in front of you what you can think about what you reflected on, but you can also see what your peers today have selected. You can see that active learning and classroom management are leading the way there. Maybe with lesson planning, giving clear instructions a little bit lower down there. It's interesting to compare that with the pre-session survey. Some of you completed a pre-session survey. The link is back in the chat if you want to go and find it, if you still wanted to do that. And in the pre-session survey, I asked a similar question, and active learning again came through as a very strong choice. When I combine the results for that with the results for this, I can see that active learning is something that is of primary concern. In the pre-session survey, lesson planning was probably the least popular option, and it's a little lower here, not the least popular, but a little lower here as well. So I'm starting to get a sense of where people's confidence maybe lies and where people might like to see themselves develop a bit more. And especially with this activity, thinking about your wider school community as well, because as we'll see today, this learning tool, this professional development tool, can be about your own individual learning. You can also do this as a peer supported group. Right, we'll stop sharing and we'll move on. It's okay? Right, okay. Right. Now, I am going to show you around the teacher skills roadmap and video library in a more detailed way, but I thought the best thing to do is jump right in and watch a video. So I've already explained that the roadmap is a set of teacher standards based around the skills that we've just looked at in the poll. But each of these skills has a corresponding selection of videos for you to watch. We're going to watch a short clip. It's a 2.5 minute clip, but we're not going to watch all of it. We're going to watch about 50 seconds, a minute of it just now. And while you're watching it, I would like you to think about how you would use a video library like this with a corresponding teacher standards document. How might you use a video like this? So we're going to jump straight in for our thinking this morning. And we're going to watch a video. We're all lined up for you here. One moment. Okay. Like I said, if Timo, if you could let me know if the sound doesn't come through, but otherwise I'll assume that everybody can hear it. We're just going to watch a small section of this just now.
Okay. What's the first step?
I think the first step is we have to on the line. We could say we set up the wall or
Maybe we move further from that. You don't need to set up. It's, let's say, it's already there.
and
Okay,
then
so
take the
here, on the board. Can you see? I can ask.
I can ask scientific questions that can be investigated.
Hands up. Approve.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we just saw a small section of a 2.5 minute video there. We just watched a very, very small section of it. I'd like you to have a think about what you would use teaching videos like that for. What would you use them for? Would you use them to see what a Cambridge classroom looks like? Would you use them to see examples of classroom practice? Would you use it to reflect on your own practice? Or something else? If you've got a different option that I haven't put there, you could pop that in the chat if you like. Or you can just sit for a minute and think, if I had the option to see a range of teaching videos along those lines, what would I want to use them for? Again, you can just think and make notes. But if you do come up with something that's different, what would you use them for? Doesn't matter if not, Timo, but if anything comes up in the chat at this point for the others option, please do feel free to bring that out just now. I can see the chat going up. Maybe people are posting some ideas about how they might use this.
Yeah, sorry, Victoria. We do have responses. So we've got Sarvit to reflect my own practice.
Mm-hmm.
Then Joanna to see what are good practices and how to apply there in their own teaching. And then we've got another one from Alvaro to reflect my teaching, practice and help colleagues as well.
Ah.
So,
I like that option. I'm just going to put, I think we'll just leave that there, but I like that option to help colleagues. I think that it's challenging, isn't it, with school timetables? Maybe you're supporting a younger or less experienced colleague, or a colleague that's maybe very experienced but just new to Cambridge and new to your school, and maybe you'd like to demonstrate something for them, but you might not have the time. Maybe you teach at the same time, so how are you going to see each other's lessons? So maybe you could find an example in the video library of something you'd like them to see, and you could they could watch that instead. I like that idea, to support my colleagues. Right, our teaching skills roadmap and video library is hosted on Cambridge Go. Many of you may be familiar with Cambridge Go already. Maybe you access resources in this way. When you have access to the teaching skills roadmap and video library, it appears like this. So let's go ahead and unpack the box and see what you get when you have access to the teaching skills roadmap and video library. Well, when you click through that pink icon, it looks like this. You can see to the left there, you've got the download section, Cambridge, where you can download all of the documents, many of them editable, for a teaching development program. And off onto the right there, you can see that's where you have the interactive skills document with the videos embedded. And I'm going to show you all of this morning. To start off with, we're going to look at the skills that we're looking to support. So planning, classroom management, clarity of instruction, active learning, creating a supportive environment, and assessment for learning. Each of these skills is broken down into 3 clear levels. Level 1, effective teaching actions, which are generally most simple to implement. So some quick and easy wins there. Level 2, effective teaching actions, which can be a bit more challenging to implement. Level 3, effective teaching actions, which can be more challenging to implement. So 3 clear levels that you can work through for each of these skills. We have 36 videos. I think we could even have more to show these skills. One of the things that we often heard when we were developing this product, when we were doing research for developing this product, was teachers saying that I know the theory of active learning, I've read about it, but I want to see it in action in a classroom. And that's one of the needs that we're meeting here. When you're in the download section, you can see here that you get the full skills roadmap at the top, the one that's highlighted in gray a little bit. That's where you have all of the different skills and all of the level descriptors. You can see you've got lesson plans, templates, which you may already have, but you can try using these ones. And you have the teacher action plan. And that's key here. When you're working with the teaching skills roadmap, it's a tool for your personal development, or as a small group of collaborative peers. You are working on how you want to develop. So we have a teacher action plan for you to fill in, to describe what you're going to experiment with to help you to develop a particular skill. So you can see on the side there, it says, what skill do you want to improve? Why do you want to improve it? What will success look like? What actions am I going to do? And you can see the super important on the left there, the reflection box. And I'm sure you're all very aware that reflection is key to good professional development, lasting professional development. What happened? Why? And what will I do next? We give examples of action plans filled in already, so you can see what a detailed, effective, completed action plan might look like. And this is the program that you can follow. So when you've reviewed the full set of teacher standards on those 6 skills that we talked about, you can choose, first of all, you can choose a teacher action. So you download the folder, you print the teaching skills roadmap out. If you look on left, you read through and highlight the actions you already do consistently. Discuss with a colleague if you can. I'm sure that you're all very familiar with dialogic learning, the dialogic classroom. It's just as important for you as educators as it is for the students in your class. So by all means, do have a professional learning conversation while you're doing this. Choose the teacher action you want to refine first. And then in the downloads folder, you download the action plan template and read the example action plans. Then we come to stage 2, complete an action plan. So you start completing your action plan. In the Teaching Skills Roadmap platform, you read the content for the skill you've chosen and you watch the videos. You finish completing your action plan. And then you execute your action plan. This is the fun bit. You get to experiment with your new strategies. You've had a really good reflective think about your current practice and where you want to develop. You've watched some videos, you've got some ideas now about how you can develop that skill, and now you're going to experiment with it. You're going to record how your learners responded and reflect on what you can try next. And then you can continue the cycles of reflective experimentation until you see an improvement in learning. And once you see the changes that you want, you choose a new action to focus on. So that's the Teaching Skills Roadmap and Video Library plan. That's what you would do. That's how you would work through it. You also get this lovely social media badge that you can put all over your schools or personal social media. You can add your school's name and you can share it with the world to let them know that you are on this professional development journey. Okay, we're going to jump back in again and take a look at another video this morning. And this one's going to have a few more specific tasks. So this is where having a notebook could be quite handy, because I do want you to have a reflect on this, but by all means, you can just type some notes or just think, whatever's going to work for you better where you are right now. While you're watching this video, I'm going to show you a longer clip this time. I would like you to think about how the teacher creates a supportive learning environment, and how does the teacher create opportunities for interaction. So this is from skill 5, creating a supportive learning environment. Timur, I wonder if I could ask you, I think I sent you earlier those 2 questions, because I'm going to navigate away from this slide and I'd like people to still be aware of those questions. Could you please pop those in the chat? So Tim is going to pop those 2 questions in the chat. So as I navigate away now, you can go to the chat and see those 2 questions still there. No? Sorry, we're going to have a little bit of a... There we go.
Question to you. I'll start from Fatih. Tell me, which color did you choose? White. You just like silver color, or you have any reason?
I like the silver color and so because they have different water, it is not good for us, but we will do it.
We'll do it because it is not good, still we take it up. That's the reason you took the brown. Thank you. Right, what have you taken?
Brown.
Brown. Why? Do you have a reason for that? So you interpreted this one. That's the reason you have taken. Not by the color of this one. Not by that, right? What have you taken? Silver. Why? Coat. By the coat only, right? And did you like the box also? Because of that? Also one reason? Right, thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to reflect further on those two questions that are in the chat right now. And they're back up on the screen as well. If you want to post something in the chat to us at this point, you are very welcome. But if you want this as a personal reflection activity, that's also completely fine. How does the teacher create a supportive learning environment? And how does the teacher create opportunities for interaction? I've got a little that I'd like to say about this, but I'm going to just wait for you to. Okay. Timur, are there some ideas in the chat that we could discuss right now?
Yeah, we've got Sristi. She suggested using a range of questioning techniques which open up discussion rather than trying to get a quick right answer, and to recognize that some students might not feel comfortable sharing, and explore ways of dealing with such as using think, pair, share activities. Then we've got
oh, I'm just gonna pause on that one for a minute, because I like, because Tristy did two things there. They pulled out what they'd seen in the video. So I think I agree that those variety of questioning techniques and also furthering the questions. But you also suggested that there could have been a way to get them with the think, pair, share, to get them to this point. Maybe something happened before to get them even more comfortable. And exactly, there are definitely activities you can do, and the teacher may well have done an activity along those lines before he started asking individuals questions to get them comfortable with that. Yes, great. Was there something else?
Yeah, we've got another one. We've got I Cadillo, who suggested letting the students think about their answer.
Yes, yes, good. Letting them think about giving them that time. Students don't need an awful lot of time. They need, maybe 5, 6, 7 seconds to have a think, but teachers tend to jump in 2 or 3 seconds after they've asked a question. I think one of the things that this teacher did is ask the question, paused, let them think about it, and then asked an individual for a response. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up at this point, Timur?
Yeah, the next one is quite a good one as well, which is Alvaro Hernando. He suggests letting the students compare their answers with their peers.
Yes, absolutely. I think that reflects back to the one we had earlier. I wonder if anybody's mentioned this teacher that we've just seen in the video. He obviously uses some very effective question and answer techniques to help students share their responses in a safe environment. He also does some quite simple things, some things that you as practitioners might not even think about anymore, but for teachers at different points in their learning journey might still be points for consideration. It might be as simple as looking at the way that he moves around the classroom, looking at the way that he smiles. He's nearly always smiling. The way he nods when students respond. He's creating a really safe, warm place for students to share their responses. He also validates their responses. He'll say things like, yes, good, but then ask them a question about why did they think that? Why was that? And he has that idea that there isn't a right, he's not looking for a right or wrong answer. I think that's what's key here. He's not asking them to try and guess what's in his head. He's asking them for their thoughts, for their opinions. He wants to know how they are thinking. And that's part of what creates a really supportive environment in that classroom. Any last thoughts, Timur, you think are worth bringing to the fore here before we continue on our journey this morning?
Perhaps one of a good example that Sabina Hasanova is suggesting here, I guess it kind of links to our active learning, is to lessen teacher talking time and let the students talk and share opinions more.
I'm really glad you shared that one, Timur. That's exactly one of the ones that I would have wanted to pull out. Absolutely. This classroom isn't about the teacher talking at the young people, at the learners. This classroom is about dialogue, about interaction. Wonderful response there. Thank you so much. Right, next activity this morning. So I'm just going to pop back along to where the Teacher Skills Roadmap is hosted on Go, just to give you a little bit of a more detailed look at what it looks like on that platform, before we move on to another point of interaction for you. So here we are on the Teacher Skills Roadmap platform. I told you if we click this one, this is where we get to the roadmap and the video library. Now, in the download section, as I said earlier, in the download section, you can download the full Teaching Skills Roadmap as a printable document, which is what you would want to do because you'd want to be able to go through and highlight it. But you can see the interactive version here. So we're just going to go ahead and open it at planning. And I'm just going to go through this very slowly, show you the different aspects. All the different skills follow the same format as this one. Of course, the content is unique depending on the skill. So we can see we've got an overview. You can see it's broken down into sub-skills. You can see the descriptions of the sub-skills. You can see some descriptions of examples. You can find aspects of where you'll see support on that skill in our resources. You'll have the embedded teacher actions and video examples. So you can see each of for sub-skill 1, I'll just pause here for a moment. Sub-skill 1, adapting long-term and medium-term plans. So you can see here that you've got level 1. The teacher has a plan for how long to spend on each unit. This allows them to feel confident that the syllabus will be covered in the school year. Level 2, the teacher also feels confident adapting the medium-term and long-term plans if needed. They are clear about which learning intentions need to be prioritized as they are essential for future learning. Level 3, the teacher also uses their understanding of their specific learners' needs and interests to differentiate medium or long-term planning. And I know that differentiation is often something that our teachers want to discuss. You can see that underneath each one of these, there's a relevant video. Sometimes these videos are like the ones that we've seen today. There'll be videos of classroom practice. Sometimes we have talking heads from teachers who are discussing how they plan and giving examples of how they plan and how they use their planning. You can see here again, sub-skill 2, planning for a short-term sequence of lessons. You can see the descriptors, and again, you have the corresponding videos underneath. You have ideas for experimentation. We talked earlier about how you want to fill in that action plan with your ideas about how you are going to experiment with this skill, seeing what works for your learners, remembering that every teacher is unique. So the things that you're comfortable with will be different to your peers. Every school is unique. What's appropriate in your school might not work as well in another school. So you'll see you get a nice list there of ways in which you can work on this. You're encouraged to use, for this skill, you're encouraged to use the lesson planning template. Of course, you may have a school one already. You're encouraged to think about how you can refine your department's long-term plans. So really kind of expanding your role there potentially. Looking at how you can, again, work with our resources on planning, an example of an action plan for lesson planning. And then I love this bit at the end. This is at the end of every skill, and explore the research. So all of our teaching skills roadmap is based on relevant current research in teaching and learning. And you can find a list of references at the bottom of each skill. So if you are at the stage where you want to start thinking more deeply, if that's what you want to do, you can go ahead. You've got all the references there, and you can go ahead and do that. The last thing I'm going to show you while we're on the platform just now is, again, I'm not sure, oops, 1 second, how super relevant this is to everybody this morning. But I know that some people are still teaching online sometimes, or maybe that's something that you're worried about. It could happen again in the future, and maybe you want to think about online learning still. And if you do, some of our lesson examples, some of our active learning lesson examples are based around online learning. So I'm just going to share a very short clip of this because time is ticking, and we need to move on and allow time for questions today. So.
Okay, I want to ask you, how can you determine the next term of the sequence which we learned yesterday or the previous meeting? How can you determine? Can you type it in the chat? Human said add plus or minus for each term. Yes, but you missed something. Maybe that can be multiplication, can be division. Yeah, I know that right now we just look at the positive and negative. You add it and you subtract it. But since in the the previous meeting, we already know about the multiplication and division also. We will see it later on. Yeah. Albert say find the difference with each term. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you can see there that we do have videos of online lessons where teachers demonstrate great interactivity and active learning. Right, so that was a little look in more detail around the platform there. Now, as I said near the start of today's presentation, the Teaching Skills Roadmap and Video Library can be used in a number of ways. The key thing to remember is it is for teachers' own professional development. This is not a roadmap for senior leadership to sit at the back of the room and judge anybody on. This is for teachers' reflection and development. It's meant to be very supportive. We've created 3 different models, and we give support for 3 different models of using the Teaching Skills Roadmap and Video Library. Of course, you're welcome to be creative with it and use it in other ways, but these are the 3 models we suggest and the 3 models that we give detailed outlines for in terms of a long-term plan for. So you can see the names of the different models along the top there. We've got the Film Club model, the Learning Together model, and the Lesson Study model. I'm just quickly going to go through which type of environment each of these is best for. And it also depends on how much time you have as a school for professional development. And then at the end, I'd like you to feedback to us which one you might think at the moment might be appropriate for your school, but don't have to put anything in the chat right now. I just want you to have a think. So the Film Club model, that's best for schools with only a very limited time for professional development, and maybe for teachers who are still quite shy to share their practice with colleagues. It would take about 1 session of 2 hours every 6 weeks. It can be done on a very personal level, with an option of up to 5 hours of self-guided learning around each session. So that's where you can work through it in a more personal way. Just you don't have to share anything with anybody else at that point. Then we've got the Learning Together model. This is for teachers who enjoy working collaboratively and learning through discussion. Again, at the start of this session, I mentioned the importance of dialogic learning in a dialogic classroom for learners, which I know you're all very familiar with, but it's something that boosts everyone's learning, that will boost your learning. And you're looking at a session of 2 hours, maybe every 2 weeks, working together, going through the roadmap together, having that conversation, talking, keeping each other accountable around filling in your action plans. Maybe if you have the opportunity to seeing each other's lessons, it's not necessary. And then you've got the lesson study model. And that's best for schools willing to prioritize professional development time in teachers' workloads and give them the space to learn deeply alongside their core work. So it's best for schools who have a member of staff who is confident in facilitating professional development. This might be a school that already has maybe a professional development mentor or somebody who is responsible for teachers continuing professional development. Or maybe it's a school that doesn't have that yet, doesn't have that now, but a school that is ready for that step. So maybe this is a tool you could use when you identify that you're ready for that step. And there you're looking for a session of 1.5 hours every week, okay, with 2 hours of self-guided learning around each session. On the platform, in the downloads folder, for each of these different models, there is a long-term plan. It goes through all the different weeks and what you might do in all the different weeks for each of these models. So it's really supportive program for you. Right, I would love to see in the chat, at the moment, where your school is now, which of these models do you think is going to work? A, the film club model, B, the learning together model, or C, the lesson study model? So go ahead there, A, B, C, in the chat. Which one do you think? Maybe Timo, you could keep an eye on the chat as they all start to roll in and see if you can see one letter starting to stand out as maybe the most common one. And I'll compare it to what I had in the pre-session.
B is leading by 1. And,
B is leading.
B is leading by 2. And then A is next. And then we've got 1C already. Yeah, predominantly B, it looks like.
Timo, this is like narrating a horse race, isn't it? I think you may have missed your calling there. B is in the lead, B is in the lead. Is that still the case? Do you think
yeah, I think it's predominantly still a B being in the lead.
That's very interesting because that's what that's what came in on the pre-session form as well. So it's very interesting that's what where most schools feel they are now, and what would be the most appropriate for their school now. So working collaboratively, maybe a small group as a department, but it doesn't have to be as a department. Maybe you've identified a couple of other teachers in other departments that you think, oh, we're quite keen on talking about teaching and learning. We've got maybe quite a similar outlook. We have a real growth mindset. We want to develop our teaching. And you could make a little group of teachers there who can fill in action plans. I like B. I like the way that it's I think it's a realistic amount of time to spend, but I think it also having that collaborative element, that dialogue, the accountability that you've said to your peers that you're going to fill in an action plan and you're going to do it and you're going to experiment in your classroom on that particular skill, and then you're going to reflect on it. Having those conversations can work really well. Great. Okay. And then finally, before we move on to questions today, we had the great pleasure of working with schools in Malaysia, Indonesia, Botswana, Brazil, Uruguay, while we were making the teaching skills roadmap and video library. We're so honored to have worked with these schools and so thankful to have worked with them. If you do work with the teaching skills roadmap, and you have some successes with it and you want to share those with us, we would love to see it. Do get in touch. You can email us, you can tag us on social media, and I think that Timo could put both of those different ways of contacting us in the chat. And if you feel after some time, maybe some months of working with it, that you've had some particular successes with it that you want to share, do let us know. We're always looking for stories, and in time we'll obviously want to expand this, and we'll be looking for other schools and other teachers to partner with to create new content, to create more videos. So we're incredibly interested in connecting with you and hearing your teaching skills roadmap journeys. And on that note, I'm going to finish my presentation and I'm going to open up to any Q&As that Timo might want to bring. And I'm going to share. I'm going to stop the share here so we can talk a little more.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for that fantastic presentation. And yeah, now it's time for our Q&A session. So please put any of your questions into the Q&A box. And let's take a look what we've got so far. Okay. Okay, we've got Fernando asking a really good question. What other tools are important to complement the resources provided by the Cambridge Skills Roadmap?
That's a great question. And I'm going to come to tools, but I'm also just going to have a little think before I come to tools about culture, because I think one of the most important things to complement the resources provided by the Teaching Skills Roadmap is the culture in your school, and the culture around professional development and openness and dialogue around teaching and learning. That really supportive culture where teachers want to grow, they want to change, they want to experiment, and that's seen as being acceptable and supportive. So I'd say that's the most important thing you can have alongside this. In terms of the things that we offer, I think this is very nicely complemented by Preparing to Teach. I think if teachers have started with our Preparing to Teach program, then they've already had some introduction to the pedagogy. They've already had some introduction to lesson planning. They've already had some introduction to the Cambridge approach to resources. And that's a very nice introduction. This is a nice next level to this. You don't have to have done that. It's not a requirement, but I think that can be a really good precursor, the Preparing to Teach program. If you wanted more longitudinal support alongside the Teaching Skills Roadmap, you can also join the Teachers Support Service. And that would be a great complement to this, because as you're undertaking this professional development journey with the Teaching Skills Roadmap, you'd have a mentored group, a subject specialist who could answer all of your questions. And you could say that I've experimented, I'm doing that, I'm working through the Teaching Skills Roadmap. This is the skill I'm working on. I've experimented with this, didn't go quite the way I was expecting. Could you offer some ideas? And I know your mentor could do that. The Teaching Support Service might be particularly useful if you're in a school where not many teachers are maybe able to join you on this Teaching Skills Roadmap journey. For whatever reason, maybe the time in the curriculum, whatever reason it is, it could be particularly useful if you're feeling a little bit alone and you want to tap into a bigger community. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Victoria. And we've got another good question by Joanna. Any suggestions on how to encourage shy students to voice their opinions or answer questions?
That's a really great question. And I'm actually going to go back to where we had some ideas suggested earlier, where we talked about the questioning technique in a video we watched. And some members of our session today posted in the chat that they thought a good pre-activity to the one we saw would be something along the lines of think, pair, share. I think think, pair, share is a great way to support those shy students. They've got that time to think about their own individual answer, their response. They can test it by just telling one other person, the person sitting next to them, their pair, so they can share it in a really safe space. And then they can share it to the class. Now, with sharing it to the class, I think what's really important, if you know a student's particularly shy, have a no hands up classroom, because that shy student's never going to put their hand up anyway, are they? And target answer, but don't, in the first instance, don't ask them when the whole class is quiet. Maybe when the whole class is having a chat, go to that student, crouch down next to them, listen when they're only sharing with their pair. Maybe help them share with their pair. When you've heard them share with their pair and you've given them confidence, you've said to them, yes, that's a great idea. That works, that would work, that's a great idea. Then when you come back to the front and you're doing the whole class share, again, no hands up, you're saying people's names, just like the gentleman did in the video we watched today. You're saying their names. You can then ask in front of the whole class, the shy student that you've been to share their responses, because they've already shared it with the person sitting next to them. They've already had the validation from you. They've already shared it out loud to you, and you've told them that's a good idea. And now they're going to feel far more confident saying that aloud in front of the whole class. You won't have to do that many times with that student before you don't have to keep going to them individually and listening and supporting. They'll gradually become more confident, and then there'll be a student that you can just call on You can just say their name and ask them for a response, and they'll do that. So it's that very nurturing, supportive time during Think, Pair, Share to get them confident. Okay. Do we have another question?
Okay, let's have a look. So we've got Farida asking, how can we register ourselves for our roadmap sessions? And I believe it's something they would have to contact their local educational consultants, I believe.
Yeah, and there's two ways through that. You can go straight to the website, and we can put a link to our professional development page in the website. But you might find it more helpful to ask your school or to work with your school to approach your local Cambridge representatives and to talk to them about that and get access. But if you're in a situation where you have maybe more autonomy over your professional development, and maybe you have, I know in some countries you have a personal professional development kind of bursary to spend, you can come straight along to the Cambridge University Press website. We can put a link into our professional development page, but you can, I think maybe for many of you, the best way forward would be to share what you've learned today with your school and talk to your local Cambridge representative.
Thank you, Victoria. I added the link to our website.
Wonderful, thank you.
In the chat. And we've got a couple of questions. With regards to the materials after the session, yes, we will share the webinar recording and the slides 7 days after this webinar. Thank you so much. And then we've got Fernando. Sorry, Victoria, you were saying?
Oh no, I think we were both going to do exactly the same thing. So I've just seen one last question that I'd really like to answer. I think you've maybe just seen it as well, Timur. I know we're pushed for time now, so I won't take too long. But I can see that last question: how important is teacher observations for teacher development, and how does the roadmap deal with this? Right. So the teaching skills roadmap is really developed for individual development. It's not designed to facilitate official or school-wide observations at all. It's meant to be supportive, it's meant to be individualized, it's meant to be empowering. It's not meant to be something that is done. Again, we want to move away from that idea that professional development is something that is done to teachers. They're passive recipients, and we want to make teachers active participants in their professional development. So this is about them assessing where they are with their professional development, and them taking the steps, reading and taking the steps to improve their own professional practice, giving them that autonomy, giving them that power, giving them that active inclusion in their development. Now, in the learning together, and particularly in the lesson study model, we do encourage peer-to-peer observation. But this is not for, again, this is not for senior leadership to come in and judge teachers on. That's not what we're doing here. This is meant to be collaborative. This is meant to be supportive. So I might go and see my colleague's lesson because I've seen their action plan. They've shared their action plan with me. They've told me what they want to experiment with. They want to fill in their reflection, but they'd like another set of eyes in the classroom to say, you know, what did you see happening? How did you see the students responding? What did you hear? Maybe the teacher that's come in to observe has been sitting with a particular table, and so the teacher might ask, what did you see? Ask the observer, what did you see on that table? What did you hear? And in that way, the observer is a collaborative peer designed to give them more information about their professional practice. This is not a tool for external judgment. It is a tool for personal practice development. So I hope that answered that question more fully. I do think that teaching observations, again, in a supportive, collaborative, developmental way, should be part of every school. That isn't necessarily what this tool is for. But I do agree that, you know, we want, and I think in the best schools, they have that great collaborative, supportive feeling. Teachers feel so supported by senior leadership. There's that nice open doors policy. Anyone can walk into your classroom at any point and take a seat and watch the learning. And you know that you are not going to be judged on that. You know that you're going to be supported. Right, okay, I'm going to leave that there because I know we've only got a couple of minutes left. And I know you've got some final information to share about follow-up and feedback and sharing of materials, Timur. So I will hand over to you.
Thank you so much for the session, Victoria, and thank you so much, Laura, for helping us as well with the chat and moderating the session today. And we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And just a couple of kind of messages before we conclude for today. So to find out more about the resources that we've discussed today, please speak to your sales representative. Or visit cambridge.org/education. We'll put the link in the chat in a second. Alternatively, if you have any IPD specific questions, please contact us via cpd@cambridge.org. And finally, when the webinar ends today, could you kindly complete the short survey that opens up automatically after the session? It should take approximately 5 minutes to complete, and it would really help us understanding how we can help and support you further following the session today. And yeah, thank you so much for attending us today. And remember that 7 days after the webinar, we will send you an email containing the recording and also the slides. So thank you so much, everyone, and good luck with your teaching, and goodbye for now. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and goodbye. So wonderful to have you all here today.
Thank you, bye.